The woke left said, stop Asian hate. And it was kind of surprising because they're the ones who have been advocating for racial discrimination against Asian people for quite some time. In colleges, for instance, in schools, they have routinely said, nah, we're not going to, we're going to set higher standards and make it harder for Asian people because, well, there's just too many in these schools, they say, which really boils down to telling an American or an immigrant or anybody, you can't go to this institution because too many people look like you. Yes. That is a morally bankrupt ideology. So what do you get? Well, over the past several months, there's been this big push to stop Asian hate. Okay, I can respect that. I mean, the woke left has created a monster espousing this ridiculous ideology that black people can't be racist and that Asians are white adjacent. We get this story. You're not even from this country, you racial slur for Asian people. Shocking moment. Man hurls slurs at Asian NYPD officer before yelling that black people can't be racist. There have been a series of attacks on Asian people. And we see the left come out and say, stop Asian hate. But what they typically overlook or don't bring up is that many of these attacks in San Francisco and New York, these very prominent ones, were perpetrated by black men attacking Asians. We recently had, I believe it was a 55-year-old or I believe 55-year-old Asian woman just walking down the street. I think this was New York, and a black man just punched her in the face. I don't think the race of the perpetrator matters because I'm not a woke lunatic. I think if someone commits a crime, they commit a crime. The problem is the woke left have been telling people you can't be racist unless you're white. What do you get when you keep telling people that while disparaging Asian people? You get videos like this, you get viral clips like this, and you get extreme violence. Now, this isn't the most pressing story that we've ever seen. I mean, it's just some guy yelling at cops. People yell at cops all the time, and people say dumb things all the time. I don't think one guy is the apocalypse here. But it's not just about this one moment. It's about what comes after it. First and foremost, we did have these attacks, this man who punched this Asian woman in the face. And if the mainstream media is propping up this message from the woke left, telling these individuals, don't worry, you're not racist, well, then what happens? I mean, you get these random attacks. You get racial hatred. And that's what we're seeing now. The problem I have, and what I brought up yesterday in my main segment, is that it's spreading. Take a look at this story. Fox News. New Jersey prep school teacher quits over critical race theory. Good for you. Dwight Englewood teacher said school forcing students and faculty to embrace a set of beliefs. These beliefs result in black people saying racist things and white progressives also saying racist things under the guise that they are privileged in doing so. I want to make sure I'm clear here. I'm not saying every person of every race. It is a specific ideology that is giving people this kind of pass to be racist, from white progressives to, I don't know how you describe this person. I'd actually say this. I know people are going to get mad. I think this black guy who was yelling these racial slurs at the Asian dude, I think he's a victim of a cult. I genuinely believe that. They come into these neighborhoods, they seek out people and they lie to them and they spread this cult-like ideology. And it results in these people saying these things, genuinely believing it. It results in a mainstream media that props it up, and it results in things that just literally make no sense. White Spanish teacher quits gig due to white supremacy, forgets where Spain is located. In Europe, Spanish people are white. They speak Spanish. It is a Romance language. Yet, it's the weirdest thing. There was another viral clip a while ago where this woman said something like, white people shouldn't speak Spanish because it's racist or something. And then people were like, yo, it's like Spanish is a colonial language, dude. They don't know what they're talking about. But it spreads up from this on-the-ground guy yelling at cops up to the woke industrial complex, so saith Christopher Rufo, Lockheed Martin, trying to deconstruct their white male privilege. So it's at every level. You have people becoming hateful. And I guess that was my main point when I said the woke cult results in black people saying things like this. I'm not saying every single black person. I know the YouTube censors are eager. No, I'm saying quite literally it results in people saying racist things to each other. It results in people of one race hating people of another race. And that's a problem. Here's a story from the Daily Mail. Disturbing video has emerged showing a black man directing a string of racial slurs at an Asian NYPD officer during unrest in Manhattan's Washington Square Park over the weekend. The unnamed man is seen in the expletive-laden video, which was uploaded to Reddit on Sunday, being confronted by a group of officers who appeared to ask him to move from the road onto the sidewalk. The man, dressed in a white t-shirt and a ball cap, appears to single out the Asian American cop and unleashes a vile tirade at him. "You're not even from this country, you piece of S, you effing C." He repeats the offensive ethnic slur, referring to a person of Chinese descent over and over again, without drawing any response from the targeted officer. Another cop tries to de-escalate the situation and leads his colleagues away as the irate man continues to yell racial abuse. Moments later, a man passing by on a bicycle overhears the slurs and calls out the abuser. "Why are you calling people racial slur, man? F you." The guy then turns on the biker and says, "S-M-I-D, all right." When a bystander accuses the enraged man of being racist, he shoots back, "Black people can't be racist, you piece of S." That is some of the most psychotic, cult-like trash. It is hypocrisy at the utmost. They go around telling people only white people can be racist. Then they claim that and they come out and they say, "We need to stop Asian hate." I wish I could swear on this channel. I don't. But you know what? I'd love to direct some expletives your way, you psychotic, twisted mother effers. You are disgusting. You are vile racists. And they are teaching our kids this in schools, and they are flying those flags at our embassies. And this is what it represents. When they go to our embassies and fly that flag, they are telling these people to be racist. When they are going to our schools and teaching our kids, they are telling our kids to be racist. They are telling our weapons manufacturers to be racist. The reactionary left, I guess you can call it. Reactionaries were those who opposed the revolution in France. And the left likes to claim it means right wing. It means those who oppose the revolution. And I'll tell you what the revolution is. This country, the United States, was overtly identitarian. Look at the founders and some of the documents they put forward and some of the arguments made by Southern states in the Civil War. Absolutely. But I'm not stupid, and I think most of you understand who watch this, that the principles laid forth by the founding fathers, the creation of this great nation, led to the civil rights era and a revolution of the mind over and over again. Boy, did that piss off the elites. We told the crown to shove it. We're going to do as we see fit to govern ourselves. And we said, all men are created equal. Well, men just being a generic reference to people, still, the law did very much favor white men. But what happened? Well, white men made decisions about what was fair and what was just, and they gave up a lot of that control, realizing that it was morally unjust. Combined with, and that's a fact, right? Because I know the left will get mad about that too. No, that's true. What happens is you get many prominent activists and heroes, people like Harriet Tubman, and they fight for freedom and true liberty. And Frederick Douglass, these people, they actually make us challenge our morals. And boy, did people not want it. Boy, did the South not want it. Boy, did the Democrats really hate the idea. But we come to finally the civil rights movement, and we said enough is enough. And we had a tremendous revolution. The end, or at least a stake in the heart of identitarianism, meaning, you know what? You cannot discriminate on the basis of race. There we said it, right? Well, it was a good couple decades. And then the Democrats said, we are sick of your revolution towards liberty and equality. And the Democrats, they just could not stop. Along comes critical race theory. Only a couple decades after civil rights. And not even a couple decades, like 15 years. These people are reactionaries. They vomited at the thought of racial equality in this country. They barfed all over themselves, and they began pushing this racist ideology in schools and colleges. And from there, they've pushed it and pushed it. They do not like that we won. They do not like that civil libertarians, classical liberals said, you know what? We should not discriminate on the basis of race or gender or national origin or religion. We should be that great American melting pot. We should live up to the words of our own Constitution. The Democrats were outraged. For forever, the Democrats had been the party of overt racism and racial segregation, and that never changed. It never changed. They were forced to get on board the civil rights movement, but where are we at now? The Democrats are the ones pushing this. The Democrats are the ones who are in, it's Washington state, a blue state, where they're forcing critical race theory on children, teaching them to be racist. It's not the red states. The red states are the ones saying, you can't do this. The Republicans, the right, are right. After the civil rights movement, these Democrats and leftists, started pushing this overtly racist ideology and preaching pro-segregationism. And now we're back at a point where schools are actually segregating dorms or graduation ceremonies, where there's actually activists advocating for overt segregation. And now you see it's manifesting on our streets. Racism never went away, and it's sad. There was always a problem in this country with racism. Even after the civil rights movement, we had blockbusting and redlining. But we fought. We said, no, you can't do that. You got to stop that. Hey, guess what? We did. Redlining and blockbusting, boom, illegal. You can't do it. Illegal discrimination on the basis of race. Because we passed that beautiful 1964 Civil Rights Act. We had that amazing ruling from the Supreme Court, Loving v. Virginia. We did it, man. But they didn't stop fighting. It's almost like the Civil War never ended, really. I mean, I was thinking about this. Now, sure, lines have shifted and ideologies have changed. But since the Civil War, it's been Democrat versus Republican, really. And you have the Democrats, who have always been the party of overt racism, still maintaining that they are the party of overt racism. But now they're lying about it, claiming it's the Republicans who are racist. The Republicans, the ones who are saying, don't judge people on the basis of race. So the Civil Rights era ended, and there were still really awful laws in the books. There were a lot of remnants of this historical racism. They exist. I mean, we literally had laws. We had practices that were overtly racist. And the housing market today is still racist. No, it is. The housing market is a nebulous concept, but it exists. And it's a fact that minority households are valued less for a variety of reasons. We have not done everything we can to end these practices. But what happens now? Well, the Democrats say, and these woke leftists say, that they're the ones who are fighting racism. They're anti-racist. That's right, anti-racist. But go ahead. They go to these racial minorities and say, hate your neighbor. Hate your neighbor. That's horrifying. We don't want to do that. We want to fix these systems. How do we do it? Well, we got rid of the laws. We made them. We made these racial covenants illegal. We said you can't discriminate on the basis of race. So our legal system has made that clear. And now there's some remnants of the past. Here's the big lie. The left says we must end institutional racism. We did for a while. And the left brought back a bunch of overtly racist policies, affirmative action, and things of that nature, saying, but we want to help people. No, you see, here's what happens. We decided that you can't discriminate on the basis of race, which is a huge victory for civil rights in this country. The left then claims that the things that are remnants of that system are proof the system still exists. Therefore, we must go back to segregation. That's literally what they're arguing for. In reality, time heals all wounds. We may have ended these laws, but we still have to contend with the after effects of those laws, generational wealth gaps and things like that, which means we are now looking at a class-based issue. We have dealt with the issue of race to the best of our abilities, not perfectly, not completely done. There's a fight. The fight is ongoing. But now we need to address the class issues that are remnants of racial policies. But those racial policies, they're illegal. The Democrats come out and they start fanning the flames, saying that, well, because there's still racism, we should go back to the old system because they're reactionaries. They cannot stand that we won, that there was a great ideological revolution towards ending racism. They can't stand it. Of course, they have useful idiots, ground troops, people who go on Reddit and Twitter who don't know anything about philosophy or civil rights and just say Republicans are racist. Meanwhile, you see stories like this. And you know what this is? This black man yelling at these Asians? This is what happens when a morally bankrupt cult takes over and infiltrates several levels of your government and your institutions. And the only resistance is the morally bankrupt GOP. I know there's a handful of people in the Republican Party who have been fighting and doing well. Trump certainly was a fighter. And there are some good people, Rand Paul, Thomas Massie. Marjorie Taylor Greene, for all her faults, is a fighter pushing back and making those demands. And that's seriously what the Republican Party needs. So they hate her guts. I'm not saying she's perfect. I think she's ripe for criticism. But the Republican Party finally has people willing to push back. They try to make her out to be that Trump character, but it ain't it. Now, we can see it coming in our schools. What do you think's going to happen? You see the story. I know maybe it's not the biggest story in the world that this guy was yelling racial slurs at an Asian, but it perfectly exemplifies the problem and the moral bankruptcy of the woke cult of critical race theory, critical theory in general. Well, they're teaching it to your children. In Washington State and these other jurisdictions, they're teaching 1619. They're erasing American history. We're seeing a white Spanish teacher quitting over white supremacy because they don't realize that Spanish comes from Spain. They've gone insane. They've gone completely insane. You turn on MSNBC. It's psychobabble for years. Millions of people watch MSNBC. It's worse than QAnon. Oh, yeah. We know the Q people believe crazy things. But the MSNBC people are watching mainstream cable. We got to do something about these advertisers. I don't know. They don't care. They literally don't care. Advertisers freak out and panic when Tucker Carlson farts. But MSNBC can for years say that Trump's a Russian agent and that all this crazy nonsense is happening. They can disparage this country and spread outright conspiracy theories. That's it. They're allowed to do it. Advertisers don't care. Why? Because the only resistance to it is the morally bankrupt GOP. No, okay, that's not entirely fair. Look, obviously I'm some kind of resistance. You're some kind of resistance. We're all pushing back. It's not enough. No, I genuinely believe, there are periods where there's been major ground taken by the anti-woke, but it's a losing battle. It's a battle of attrition. You see, too many people, prominent personalities and celebrities, just want money. And they will absolutely say whatever the establishment wants. So as soon as mainstream media, big tech, goes woke, everyone else falls in line. But I think it really comes down to advertising, because you can make, YouTube and Google or whatever bend their knee if the advertising dollars don't show up. It's kind of like a Mexican standoff. So what needs to happen is people need to get jobs at advertising firms, start advertising firms, take them over and shut down the wokeness and just say no to it. I have no problem with, Joe Biden was talking about commercials with mixed race families and he's like, what are they doing? They're selling soap. And it was like a really weird, okay, well, whatever. I mean, yeah, the Democrats are racist. I get it. I don't care about those commercials. I think it's cool. Whatever. The issue is critical race theory, the overt racism. When I see a commercial and it's like, a black woman and a white man and they're married and they have kids and the kids are mixed race, I'm like, all right. That's actually showing people coming together. That I actually like. To people loving each other. Now, what if it was like a black woman with mixed kids and a white dad and the whole commercial was them just screaming at how the white dad is evil? I'm like, that's a problem. The racism is bad. Commercials with mixed race people is just, it's showing love and acceptance and normality. That's fantastic. Just like people having breakfast and advertising cereal. I like it. I dig it. It's cool. The problem is critical race theory. It's overtly racist. They don't want this utopian vision. They want people to hate each other. They want to see stories about, a black man screaming racial slurs at an Asian cop, saying he can't be racist. That's literally what they preach. They say stop Asian hate, and then they go and physically beat Andy No and threaten him. And these are white people because they don't actually believe what they say they believe. Now, I'll tell you this one thing. I've never been more desperate to believe that get woke, go broke is a real thing. Because, maybe this whole system of wokeness will eventually implode on itself. I don't think so. Cults and dogmatic ideology have taken over countries before. Look at the Soviet Union. Look at Europe, fascists and communists. Wokeness at the Fed's regional banks puts central bank independence at risk. Okay. All right. That ain't so bad. Stock market's up, apparently. Wokeness at the Fed. Well, if get woke, go broke is true and the Fed collapses. No, look, as much as I don't like the Fed, it's just another sign of collapse. When our schools are teaching people to be racist and teachers are quitting. When teachers are quitting because they think it's racist to speak a European language. When the Federal Reserve is getting woke and goes broke. Look, man, people might not want to hear it. They say it's fear mongering or pessimism when I say the system is facing collapse. I've never seen it shaken this badly. Maybe that's just me. I'm young, right? Young-ish. I'm 35, so I'm not that young, but I'm not 50, okay? There are a lot of people who've experienced a lot more and seen a lot crazier things. Maybe it's been worse before. maybe it's been way worse. I mean, you had the Weather Underground back in the day, and they were blowing stuff up. So maybe it's not as bad as we think. Maybe this is just another brick in the wall. Maybe this is just another day in the life of American politics where people are pointing the finger at each other. But I'll tell you what's happening now. On MSNBC, and maybe I'll talk about this in a different segment. They're saying they had a guest on who said maybe we need to start arresting members of Congress because of the insurrection. You look at this stuff, and I ask myself, I'm like, arrest members of Congress? At what point are we going to have someone in Congress cane another member of Congress? Because that's what happened in the Civil War, just before the Civil War. What happens now that the ideology is so split? I'll put it this way. Maybe it won't happen this year or in the next few years. I kind of think I'm bullish on serious conflict. But what do you think happens when someone who's, let's say, 20 years old, ultra woke 20-year-old, runs for office in 5 years or so? They get into Congress, and they're literally Antifa. Somebody who smashed windows and threw bricks at faces and beat people bloody. Now they're in Congress. You look at what's happening with this indoctrination, and you need to understand that these 20-year-olds today who are woke, they were 10 years old during Occupy Wall Street. 10. Isn't that crazy? They were 10 years old. Now it's been 10 years, and they're 20. And now they're engaging in politics, and they're ultra woke. Not all of them, but they exist. They don't know anything about the past. They're violent and dangerous. And what happens when they start running for office and they get into Congress? And then you have people in Congress who are violent. Someone's going to cane somebody. Civil war's around the corner. This country is fractured so heavily. It's always been, though. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.